Suddenly soundtracks are here to provide you. Suddenly soundtracks will show you care. Oh, be more the soundtrack inside you with sweet understanding. Oh, with sweet understanding. With sweet understanding. Soundtracks are your friend.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Suddenly Soundtracks, the show where we judge a movie solely based on the soundtrack that it provides. I am your host, Christopher Clark, and I'm here with Liz Haddad, Preston Max Allen, and Robert Adams from the Cinefanatics. How you guys all doing? We're going to rock this sucker to the end of time. We're going to be going through Rent from 2005, I think. I'm going to throw it over to you, Preston. What are your thoughts on Rent, and when did you first see it, and why do you love this so much?
Well, first of all, I want to say that my cat, Hero, found your intro so, he immediately flopped. He loved it. So you get top marks from this cat. I grew up in Texas, and I loved musicals and, lived on their soundtracks, and finally saw Rent when I was 11. I had a little bar mitzvah party in New York with my dad, and we saw a few shows, and Rent was one of them, and it was blew me away, so incredible. From a little 11-year-old brain that only probably understood two-thirds of it. And then I saw it again live on tour when they did the anniversary tour with Adam Pascal and Anthony Rapp, which was awesome. So I've always, I'm like a rock musical person. That's definitely my home base. So of course it sits right in my little pocket. I love it.
110%. This is a rock musical through and through. Ellie, what are your thoughts on Rent, and why do you love it so much?
So I came to Rent with the movie. Actually, was the first time I was experienced to it. I, like Preston, grew up in Texas, but not with as progressive as a family, and much further south, I believe, than Preston was. And I, in high school, got really obsessed with theater, and some friends were like, oh, hey, Rent just came out. And when it came out on DVD, so I guess it was probably my senior year that I finally got to see it. We watched it. I fell in love with it. I do not have the same feelings as I used to for the movie as an adult. But I loved it so much that the summer of my senior year, I went to New York and by myself, because I'd been for spring break my senior year of college, and nobody wanted to see Rent because they had seen it already. They were people who like Preston brought up in the theater, went to New York, saw it. So I went to Rent. I had a sinus infection, 102-degree fever, sat in the very last row. And if anyone has been in the New Amsterdam, all of the Rent years, especially at the end, it was a trash dump. I distinctly remember my seat had cigarette holes in it, and it was an experience. I also ended up with a really bad Benny and just a couple of things where there was some issues with the casting. So that kind of really messed with my experience of seeing Rent live finally as a little theater kid who had never seen musical theater live and then got to see Rent. But I kind of ebb and flow with the musical. I love it sometimes, and then I sit with it and I'm like, there's so much unfinished. But of course it is an unfinished musical since Jonathan Larson sadly passed away. So
Robert Adams from Cinefanatics. Rob, what are your thoughts on Rent? Why do you love it so much?
So I was also another person that came in to it from the movie. And also real quick, I guess I have to add into it that I also grew up in Texas, and I'm still currently here in Texas. I don't know if y'all are also, so I don't know where y'all are. I haven't met y'all before. I know Chris Clark I have, but I haven't met y'all before, I don't think so. I don't know where in Texas. Anyways, we can talk about that later. Me, it was years ago. I was with my girlfriend at the time. We went to Houston with some of her friends, and we went to some bar that was having some people. They had like an acting troupe at this bar in the back room. On a New Year's Eve, they were performing just the Rent songs. They weren't doing a whole performance of the whole musical, but just singing the songs as a group in character. So that was my first interaction. I was like, okay, some of these songs sound kind of catchy. I kind of like these songs. Later on, watched the movie, absolutely loved it. And then eventually I've seen like the stage performance, not live, but in various video formats, I guess. So big fan of the musical. It's easily one of my top favorite musicals. I will jam the soundtrack in my car all the time, multiple times a year. For multiple days on end. I'll just get on like a Rent bender where I just gotta like listen to it. Like after Love Heals, start it over.
Loopity loop. Guys, just so you guys all know, this is actually a Patreon requested episode of Suddenly Soundtracks from our executive producer, Brandon Buckingham. So shout out to Brandon for selecting Rent. I also would like to shout out the producers and executive producers from Patreon. Executive producers, Brandy Parker, as I said, Brandon Buckingham, Ricardo Franco, and the producers, Anton Putra, Bedor, Chris Picorni, Michael K., Jake Berlin, the youth critic, Kale, Molly Damon, Stephen Wright, Patricia Carrillo, and Tyler Birch. This is taken from actually last week's Suddenly Soundtracks, which Max, David B., and Tim Franco decided to do a F the Man playlist, which is awesome. So be sure to check that out. That was terrific. So, guys, for Suddenly Soundtracks, rules are simple. All right. Each soundtrack is reviewed track by track. Every panelist gives a score depending on how they feel about a certain song. We judge it solely based on the film itself and the soundtrack that it provides. There are 6 rating system scores. 5 are shown here. Rockin' 5 out of 5. Download it 4 out of 5. Shuffle it 3 out of 5. One time listen 2 out of 5. Skip it 1 out of 5. And there is a special 6 out of 5 option, which every panelist gets only 2 of, which is the hard rockin' score. So, guys, it's super simple, super self-explanatory. We're going to go through each song track by track. And, Robert, I'm going to give you the honors first. Just tell me your thoughts. Do not give me your rating of Seasons of Love. What are your thoughts on this opening number?
So, I mean, easily, this is probably the song that most everyone is familiar with. This is like when you're talking about like trying to get people into watching, like, hey, come over. I got a musical I want you to watch. Yes, I know it's a musical, but easily, I want to say for people who are not familiar with musicals, if you're familiar with the songs, that's how you get them interested in the musical. Everyone's familiar with this song. This is the song that told us, that helped everyone in grade school remember for the test how many minutes are actually in a year. So you had like a class full of kids like after like 1998 or so that like, how many minutes are in a year? And they're like, yeah. So, I mean, the song's iconic. I love it. I don't know. Like the thing is, like I still will. I love the song. I will still jam out to the song. But the thing to keep in mind is it is the song that is the most played out of the entire soundtrack. Unfortunately, regardless of how good of a song it is, that means that song has the fatigue of being potentially overplayed and overheard. Every time there's like a Broadway show or something like on TV and they're like, okay, and from the musical Rent, you're sitting there like,
this is the stock
Seasons of Love. Yeah. Like, okay, play Seasons of Love. That's what you're going to sing.
And it's not really just that. Like I've seen cabarets of like shows and like people like would audition with this song time and time again. It's a song that's really, really overdone, but I will merit the fact that it really starts the show and gives the show its needed momentum. Preston, do you agree with anything we're saying? What are your thoughts on Seasons of Love?
Yeah, I mean, it's played so much that but like also it was the first song I like learned in full on piano. It was, I mean, specifically if we're looking at like this movie, I think it's so smart to start the movie with Seasons of Love, because it's, the one everyone knows. So I mean, like, for that, I'm like, kudos to the adaptation of it, because like, you're gonna hook the people who are like, what is this? All of a sudden they're gonna sit and be like, oh, I'm familiar with this, I'm like more on board. And like, it's a classic. So it's one of those things like with Defying Gravity, where you're like, oh my god, if I hear this in audition, that person take it to hell. But
Defying Gravity, I know that song.
I would give anything to be in Marie's Crisis right now, hearing those opening chords of Seasons of Love. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5.
I'll give it a rockin'. Okay. Before I throw it to Liz, Rob, what do you give Seasons of Love?
I'll give it a rockin'.
Okay. 5 out of 5. Cool. Liz, what are your thoughts on Seasons of Love?
So I am kind of the opposite of Preston in that I don't think it's properly used in the movie, because it jumps straight into it. And Seasons of Love actually happens like in the act. It's either the Act 1 finale, or I can't remember if it's the Act 2 starter.
It comes up again.
Beginning of Act 2.
Yeah. And so I always get act breaks wrong when I'm not like staring at it directly. But I really think Seasons of Love loses its emotional impact by assuming the audience knows who these characters are, because part of Seasons of Love, the reason why it is so effective in the live show, is that you have watched these characters for an entire act, and then you're at one of their funerals, and to hear Collins like sing his solo is just like, there's the super fun one, which also of course is earlier, but it's, you've been with the characters for a little bit to just straight jump into Seasons of Love. And if you know the characters, if you know the music, you really can get into it. But if you're a new person coming into Rent, it doesn't really hit the same way. I'm still gonna put it on a 4. I would download it. It's one of those where I come and go from it depending on which version of it is, and this is not my favorite version of Seasons of Love.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Liz a little bit on this, mainly because, as she said, an opening number should really establish who your main people are, and here it establishes kind of who they are and how they sing, but it doesn't really establish kind of who their character is. So it doesn't really give the show, the movie version, that moment. It gives a momentum into the movie, and it's a recognizable song, and it's good for the audience. But from a character standpoint, it doesn't quite hit the rockin' for me, as I would usually give opening numbers, just because I feel like it needed a little bit more kind of substance there to kind of open up the show. I felt like if the movie opened with the number Rent, it probably would have been better. But for me, I do give it, like Liz, a download it. But Liz, we're going to go into, okay, so since there's a lot of songs in this movie, there's almost 30 of them. We're going to do 3 at a time from now on. Liz, the songs Rent, You'll See, and One Song for Glory. What are your thoughts on these 3 songs, and what do you give each of them?
So Rent definitely is a 5 for me. Like, I'm sure people are going to put it higher because it is like you said, I think Rent actually needs to be how the show starts. It is it's like you get the aggression, you get the story, you get what they're going for. Again, I think this is one of those that it's a little more impactful on stage versus like the way they did it in the film, but it's still a great song. You'll See, honestly, I forget that it even exists, if I'm being honest. And so I'll leave it at that. And I would give it like a 2. It's not a skip it, because I don't
a scene through dialogue, essentially, between 3 people. Like, I
don't skip anything when the Rent soundtrack comes on, but like I was listening to it for work and I don't skip it, but like it's definitely not one like I download and listen to or like go back to.
I get it.
Now, this one's going to be a little weird, but One Song Glory is my 6.
Oh, what? Okay.
And One Song Glory is my 6 because of a very specific reason. Okay. So I, in my first college, rushed Alpha Psi Omega, which is the National Honorary Theater Fraternity. And for part of our hazing week, I went to college when Hell Week still existed. We had mentors that could ask anything of you at any time. And since I went to a Baptist college originally, you were assigned a same-sex mentor, so they could actually come into your dorm room in the middle of the night. And so in the middle of the cafeteria, I was commanded to sing a song from Rent. And One Song Glory was the only song I could come up with. And so I had to sing it. I am not a singer. I am a techie. At the top of my lungs in my school's cafeteria to rush Alpha Psi Omega as a freshman. And so it's also just a song I really always have connected with. I think you need the right Roger in it for it to work. It can really go south very quickly, which sadly, Pascal, I have seen some performances where it went south very quickly. But in his high day, before he shredded his voice, he's gotten a lot better, actually, if you've heard him more recently. But there was a period that was really rough there for a couple of years. One Song Glory was just like this visceral song that I really think captured Roger. And I just connected with it. So it's always just been my Rent song. Like,
it is rock. It rocks. Preston, what are your thoughts on these 3 songs?
Oh, they're so different.
Okay.
I would like to say Seasons of Love specifically as a dramaturgically makes no sense there, but I can see why they made the like strategic choice to put it first. So I respect it there. Rent is the last song I performed at karaoke before the pandemic. So I love the song Rent. Establishes everyone beautifully. I was thinking about giving it my second 6 because I feel very certain about my first, but I know we're not supposed to necessarily compare with the show, but like I'm a December 24th, like that's how Rent starts for me. And so the fact that they cut the like dialogue out of this song messes me up so much. So I was like, I just can't give it because I kept like, I was listening to Goose a couple times for this, and I just kept going, Maureen, I'm not a theater. It just wasn't there. I was haunted by the ghosts. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5 because it's just such a good title number. It kills it. You feel every single one of them. It's established in a second. You'll see it's fine that it's there. It's like bean sprouts for me. I'm like, I don't need these, but they're here. I definitely give it a one-time listen. What I do like about You'll See that I forget is that Benny is just like, it's now pretty like famous that Benny's like not a bad person. He's like offering them free rent if they do one thing for him. And he's like, and this song, you're like, yeah, that sounds great. You should stop this protest.
There's the great theater kid meme that's like every rent head becomes Benny at some point, and that's when you know you're old.
It's not your rent.
Wait, free rent in Alphabet City? Hell yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm your friend. Stop this protesting. We don't have to worry about the rent. They literally just sang a song about anyway. And then One Song Glory. One Song Glory is one of my 6s, not for this, not for any of the same reasons. But I just think it's so simple but so powerful and intense. I love the orchestration in the movie. I love that they make it a little crunchier. It's such an incredible standalone musical theater rock song. I love singing it. I love it. It's like when I'm like fiddling around on my guitar, I'll play through it sometimes. That to me is like, if I pick one song to listen to from Rent, it's going to be One Song Glory.
One song?
Rent is a phenomenal. Before I go to you, Rob, I'm going to just say Rent should have been the opening number for the film. I think it would have worked even better. And I gave that a rockin'. I would have given it a rockin' still if it opened, and that would have fit my usual thing where a song needs to establish and give the momentum of the story and kind of give a meaning to what you're about to watch. This does it, but it's the second song. It's a weird kind of conundrum. You'll See, to me, doesn't translate at all from music to actual film. I feel like this is better off in the movie, and I actually have it listed as skip it because on my terms it just doesn't translate outside of the film. And One Song One Glory is a rockin' for me. It's a huge rockin'. I agree, it's not my hard rockin', but you know what, he comes in, slays, kills, and then busts out. It's just a rock song through and through. Rob, what are your thoughts on these 3 songs before we go to the next slots?
Oh, good Lord, this is going to sound repetitive.
Yeah, go for it.
So I understand the argument of Rent being like where people are saying that's the opening number. My thing I will bring up to that is, again, keep in mind we're talking about the movie, not the stage show. Yeah. In the movie, Rent as an opening number, I don't feel like works very well if it was the opening number because you have Seasons of Love shows everyone. Yes, it fails in the fact that it doesn't show you characters. You have no idea like Maureen or Joanne or anything.
That's fair.
But they're also not shown in the song Rent at all. You only see like Mark and Roger with a little bit of Collins in there, but that's about it. That being said, I love the song Rent. I do feel like movie-wise, after you get through Seasons of Love setting the tone, Rent sets the story in motion, and it does a very good job of it. I compare, like, again, I'm going to try to do it very little, but comparing to like the stage performance, I do like how the movie, like the song starts off with Mark on his bicycle down an actual street, like actual New York City street, like just professing this song. How do you document? I'm going to try not to sing too much because of we don't want to be shut down, but like he is angry about that while like you see hands on handlebars and he's dodging cars. You feel that in the movie, and I love that it's able to take that angle because you don't get that in the stage performance. The stage performance, you get them like walking back and forth on stage, clenching fists, essentially yelling at you.
This you get movement. I got you.
Yeah. So I like how the movie took it. As far as Rent, I will call that a solid rockin'. Absolutely, all day. You'll see, I agree with everyone. I will call it a one-time listen. It's pretty much just a spoken word type of song with a little bit of music in there, a little bit of melody. I like how they still have kind of a chorus with repeating the "You'll see, boys," but that's about it. One Song Glory, absolutely. I'm gonna have a hard time with this one because I don't know if I want to give my number 6 to this. But everything y'all said about One Song Glory, I absolutely agree. I will sing One Song Glory karaoke if possible.
Possible in Brooklyn.
I'm torn. So behind the scenes, I know one of my number 6s already. In fact, I told Chris before this got started what one of my number 6s is going to be. I'm torn between 2 other songs. One Song Glory is one of them. And I still don't know if I want to give it to this or if I want to give it to.
You can always come back to it later if you want to, but
if I want to change it up, if you'll allow me to potentially think it through as we get to the other song, I will easily give One Song Glory a hard rockin'.
Okay. It's your 6 for now, but if you change it, you have one left. So we're going to move on to the next one, Rob. Light My Candle, Today for You, and Tango Marine. Before I throw it to Liz, I'm going to throw it to you, Rob, since you've got the last stakes on the last. Give some fresh thoughts on these 3 songs and your thoughts on them.
Light My Candle, I like it. I think it's a very good, it does very well of introducing Mimi. There's a couple of portions in that song I feel like are kind of hokey. That being said, like going off of the idea that Rent, originally when Rent was created, it wasn't done by someone who was already like a massive theater person. I know in the movie or in the musical, they do quote Stephen Sondheim. This wasn't like a Sondheim level musical. This was one person just writing out the songs with arguably a second person. We don't need to dive into that. But like there's a couple of portions of some of these songs where it just doesn't make sense. And it feels like you just kind of forced a line in there just because you think it would work. Light My Candle, unfortunately, has a couple of those, but otherwise, I think with turning what is normally dialogue into a song, like especially the 2 people first meeting, I think it does very well. I will call Light My Candle a 4.
Oh, that's cool. Today for You, Tomorrow for Me.
Today for You, I like this as an introduction of Angel, and it's funny. Even though it gets really dark and demented. I like it, but it's not easily one of my favorites. I'll let it play because it's short, but like if it was longer than it was, I'd probably skip it. Not your ranking, I would literally skip it. But
oh wow, okay.
I'll call it a 3, a shuffle it. So, Tango Maureen, I think, is a really fun song. And the fact that it establishes this one guy having to get along with his ex's new girlfriend, I kind of like that dynamic in that song, and it works very well. I will call this, I'll call it a 4. It's not like I'm going to jam out to it, but I like it.
Yeah. Preston, do you agree with him about Today for You, or Tango? What are your thoughts on these 3?
Yeah, I Light My Candle. I really love. I mean, it's largely sung through. I think that they establish character really well. I think they establish the connection really well, as long as the two actors have any sort of chemistry. And then they sprinkle in so many like little tidbits about the characters that do feel, I think, pretty natural, especially because they kind of admit that they're manipulating the situation to stay with each other a little longer, like, you know, mention something that seems a little romantic. So they're awkward. And so I forgive those awkward moments as like just establishing their want to be near each other and fill those silences and get to know each other a little. I really like it. I would give it a download. It's not like, light my candle. But I love it. Today for You, you have to have a really good angel for that song to work. That's a song where you can have a mediocre like Roger and get through a lot of it. But like when Angel is not successful, Today for You can be hard to watch. But in this iteration, I just like, it's gonna be a like between shuffle and one time listen. I'm gonna place it at shuffle because it does feel iconic, but like I've heard it a million times and it's one of those where I like don't need to hear it again. Like if it played at Marie's Crisis right now, I'd like go get a drink. I also think like it's a bizarre story of murder, and we never dig into that. And it's one of those things where I'm like, if this was a workshop, I'd be like, what is going on in Today for You? But I think there's something charming about that. Tango Maureen is another. It's almost a rockin' for me because like it's really like whether or not it's like
I like the instrumentation,
yeah, like it's really is a solid tango sound. Like musical theater sometimes doesn't always lock that genre in a rock musical, but it locks that. And the chemistry between those two characters is really great, whereas you can't imagine what Maureen's chemistry with Mark is. The two performers in the film are so good. I think Tracy Thoms is not in the original, but is so good in the movie. And I think it's a really, really successful. So I'm actually going to give Tango Maureen a rockin'. That's very successful.
Liz, any thoughts on these 3 songs?
Yeah, so I just want to make one clarification, Robert. Jonathan Larson had actually written 3 pretty decently widely accepted musicals before Rent. Rent is his last musical. So the issue with Rent is that it was still in previews. It had actually not even opened yet.
Yeah.
And so everything we have is liner notes and decisions that the team made and things like that. So it's not a complete musical. And I do think Light My Candle and Today for You are kind of where you start to see that information creep in. Like Today for You feels like Preston says, like there's some choices that are made that you're like, oh, are we ever gonna like actually deal with the fact that Evita is Benny's dog, or are we just gonna like fly through that in La Vie Boheme and never touch it again? Like, and that's one of those things that's like, yeah, it works as a great callback, but it's one of those like, are we gonna address it?
Yeah.
Like, it just kind of feels like Today for You is like thrown in there. I love the song. I'm not gonna lie, like seeing it live, listening to it, it is a fun song. So I'm not trashing the song by any means, but I do think it's one of the more incomplete moments of the show. Light My Candle, I like musically it's great and everything, but for whatever reason, I just don't really enjoy it.
I'm that way.
I think part of it in the movie is who is singing it. But I think it can be a beautiful song. Tango Maureen, I adore. I do think it is a more overplayed Rent song. Like everyone who wants to do Rent but needs a boy and girl song usually goes towards Tango Maureen. But I think in every iteration of it, we really get to know who Mark is. We get to know who Maureen is. And we get like those little inside pieces. And we also get to, I am blanking, it's Joanne, right? Yeah. So we also get to know Joanne, and that's when like you get to know Joanne is coming into this like bohemian lifestyle and doesn't want to live it. Like they're kind of exact opposites of Mark is a rich kid who is choosing to live the poor life in the Alphabet City. Maureen is a rich kid who kind of got drug into this by her girlfriend. And so seeing those different sides of that archetype that kind of existed in Alphabet City is an interesting thing. I kind of wish it got dealt with more. I think a lot of people don't even realize that Mark comes from wealth. Unless you read the liner notes that say like, oh, Mark is from an affluent Jewish family. Like, you don't really get that from the musical, but you do kind of see if you could pick up on the moments, like the fact that he learns tango from the rabbi's daughter at the JCC and things like that.
The Scarsdale Jewish Community Center.
Yeah, or for New Yorkers, the fact that he goes to the Scarsdale Jewish Community Center. Scarsdale is like one of the richest per capita cities in the entire country. So those are like little tidbits that, again, nationally don't do anything for anyone. They don't know what Scarsdale means, but people who know the Northeast and know New York know that this kid who supposedly is so poor he can't pay rent is from Scarsdale. It kind of like opens up the shell of like who Mark is and what's going on with him. Yeah. So with that said, like Light My Candle, I actually, even though I don't like enjoy it, I do think it is a forward just for the musicality of the song. Like Today For You, I love it, love it, love it, but I think it's more on a shuffle. Like it really doesn't stand on its own, and so I can't give it much harder. And Tango Marine is a rockin' for me. Like I really, it just puts you in this like fun mood, even though it's not a like heartwarming song. It's literally this woman coming to the realization that her girlfriend's cheating on her, and the information is given to her by her ex-boyfriend. But like it is a fun song. It's a super fun way to present this information.
Yeah. I'm kind of on your wavelength here with Light My Candle. I do appreciate the it kind of has kind of an under the boardwalk kind of like rhythm to it, which I do enjoy. I do enjoy the musicality of it. The song itself, I can't really put my finger on why I wouldn't go back to it as much as I would. I have it as a one-time listen from myself. It kind of just feels like it's good for the soundtrack. It's good for the film. It's probably not good outside of that. Today For You is a bop, in my opinion. I think it's a really fun song. It makes little to no sense in the continuity of the actual film and musical itself, because as you said, a lot of those thread lines don't really get paid off. And it just kind of establishes kind of like Angel's personality. But I mean, I find it to be a fun song. I actually gave it a rockin' because I felt like it really was fun to listen to. Outside of the musical itself, I thought it was fun. Tango Marine is, in my opinion, as you guys said, it's fun. It's a fun little tango number. I would go back regularly to Mushnik and Son instead if I wanted something from a Broadway sort of tango musicality. This is an okay song. I gave it a download it. So yeah, this was a pretty solid sweep in my opinion. It was mixed on other ends, but we're gonna go right into Life Support, Out Tonight, and Another Day. Preston, what are your thoughts on these three songs? One of them is really short.
I love Life Support. Yeah. I love what they're up to. It's definitely like a shuffle it. Like it comes on as like, yes, let's say our meeting greeting. Yeah, like not much going on, but a great establishment for kind of, we've had a lot of like bops and it's been fairly serious, and Life Support is the first moment where it's like, no, like there's other people in this world who are going through a range of very painful things that you do have to sit down and acknowledge. Out Tonight. It's out tonight. I knew that all those words of that song when I was 9. I don't know what I was doing, but I think Rosario's vocals are good. I don't remember her performance in the film, but her vocals on the album are good. I really love Tanashi as Mimi in the live one. I thought she did this really well. I'm going to give it a rocking for my historical love of Out Tonight. Such a hard song to perform too, so kudos to people who can get through it physically.
Like
howling and pole dance. It's a fearsome song.
What, you're not used to that? I mean,
it's like only on
I do daily.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday for me.
I remember the stage version and thinking, like, how did they get away with this actor safety wise? Because she does that flip around the pole, like at the top of the stage.
Not all of them do all of it.
Yeah.
Which is better for everyone. Yeah, I have to give it a 5. And Another Day was almost another 6 of mine, just because it's so iconic. This version does not do it as much for me, so that was one that's again like what kept. I love it. I think it honors the sound of it. I think it's one of the most beautiful back and forth contrasting duets that end up weaving, and establishes what makes it so hard for them to be a couple in terms of their ideologies, and it's going to also be a rockin'. They're not all going to be rockin'. I have some controversial opinions, but with the Out Tonight Another Day like duo, come on, like to me, it has to be for both.
And Life Support is essentially that famous bridge from Another Day. Yeah. So I mean, this is like a pretty iconic kind of 3 set here. Another Day is actually my 6. Is one of my 6s. I think that iconic bridge is something I really love. The It's Only Us, It's Only This, and Life Support has that. And I actually gave Life Support a rock, and just because even though it's short and sweet, it has that fucking great bridge that I love, and it sweeps. Out Tonight, so much energy in that. Holy shit. I don't even know how you do that live without like losing all your breath and muscle usage, because of just how physical and how grueling that all is. And it exudes. All 3 of these are rocking. 2 of them are rocking, one's hard rocking. Great sweep. Rob, what are your thoughts on these 3?
I do like Live Support just because it does bring in a very realistic. I mean, if we're coming off of like Today for You and Tango Marine, it does bring a very realistic look. I find some of what you say suspect because I'm used to rely on intellect. I should have died 3 years ago, and then brings in. This is the first time we get that tune that constantly is like, "There's only us. There's only this. Begin to love," or which is replayed throughout the rest of the musical, the soundtrack.
It's the show's motif.
Yeah. So I love it for that. Out Tonight is just a good rock song. Oh, so real quick, Life Support, easily, I'll call it a good download. Okay. Just because it is key, but it doesn't pick up, but it is key to the soundtrack overall. Out Tonight is a good rock song. If I had the ability to sing it, it would probably be higher, but I don't at all whatsoever, except in my car by myself, maybe in the shower if my brother's not home. I live with my brother, by the way, for context. So Out Tonight, I will call rockin' easily. Another Day, I feel like it's a little awkward just with it, but I mean, that's from my perspective. I understand what Roger's going through in there, and that's why he's essentially like yelling at Mimi. And unfortunately, the movie really doesn't show the resolve of that, of him like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I was kind of a dick the other night." But the song is good. I'll call it a download, but Out Tonight is easily the strongest.
Liz, do you have differing opinions?
So for Life Support, I genuinely love Life Support musically. I think that with that said, though, it is a 1. It's a skip it. It serves its place in Rent, and so I could see and try. Like someone could argue for me to put it up much higher because it serves its place and it does what it's supposed to be. But man, it is depressing. And the more, I think it's one of those songs, like the more you are a Rent head and the more you know, like these names are actual names that were said at these meetings. These are like all of these times that they go to the meetings, there's so much weight to it that like I personally can't listen to it like on a regular basis. And so it does become I would rather kind of pass over that, not forget that it's there, but it's not the energy that like you can just throw on, really jam out to. It's one of those you really need the weight. So it's almost like a split. thing for it, because like musically I would give it a 5. Like it serves its purpose. It's beautiful. I love what it sets up. Those chords, when they happen, they like enact something in you when you hear it live, when you like even listening. I remember when the television live performance was done, recorded live, since Roger but like life support like viscerally can cause something inside of you, and I think that's beautiful that it does, but for me I just can't listen to it because of that, like because it's so good at what it does. Out Tonight is fun. It's not my favorite Rent song. It's another thing where you really need the right Mimi in it. I think the movie Rosario Dawson is actually much better than the staged version. Which I know I have strong opinions on musical theater actresses, and so like I never really got into Rosario Dawson, or I hate to say it, Indina Menzel. Like they're not in my top, so it's hard like when it's their solos. But Out Tonight is definitely a 4 for me. And Another Day, I do kind of agree with Robert that the movie kind of misses the mark on Another Day, but I still love the song. Like it's definitely still, it is what Rent is. It's that gritty emotion of like Roger. And we do actually get a little more of their backstory. Like you see his ex-girlfriend OD in the bathroom and stuff like that. Like you see it, but I think almost seeing it kind of removes you out of it. Like instead of seeing Roger's story and see him go through it, they use a lot of the showing. And I always think that's the bigger problem. And so like in this case, Another Day, you haven't spent enough time with Roger emotionally being Roger. You've been shown a lot of who Roger is, so it doesn't hit just as much, but it's still for me like a download because I enjoy it, I listen to it, but I think it doesn't hit exactly the same way.
Oh, that totally makes sense. Rob, I'm going to throw it over to you for this one. What are your thoughts on Will I, Santa Fe, I'll Cover You, and Over the Moon?
Will I is kind of in the same vein as Life Support. The only thing different with that one is the way that is put together. And I know like this is gonna sound bad, but the way the structure of the song is kind of like back when we were in elementary school, the person singing row, row, row your boat, and then the next person sings like the next frame over. It's a very oversimplification, but it works with that song and it sounds gorgeous. I love the setup of that song, and like even though it's not a hard rock song, it's definitely one I love singing in my car, because I can, like in my car by myself, I can always pick at what point I want to enter singing along with this song, and it feels awesome because you've got essentially like a backup chorus to you that are off time with you, and it just sounds so good. Will I will easily call a rockin'. It is out of the songs of showing like the people at the live support, the meetings, it is the front and center song of that. Santa Fe I like. It's a cool like idea just because it does put in that idea to Roger to eventually move to Santa Fe, which I'm trying to think. There's another musical that takes place in
Newsies.
Newsies.
As a little
Santa Fe.
Like, Santa Fe. Yeah.
What's up with musicals and people in New York wanting to go to Santa Fe?
The theory that I've been thrown out, and it doesn't work as much for Rent because Rent's a little bit older, but Santa Fe used to be seen as this place that you could get a job and live the easy life. Okay. But you could get to it from the railroad. So in the sake of like Newsies, he would be able to hop a boxcar and make it to Santa Fe and could reinvent himself. I think that kind of pulled through into newer musicals. Like they've attached this like idea to Santa Fe that like but it was like as far as you could get that wasn't California, because no New Yorker would write a musical where you want to move to California.
Yeah.
But you could safely go to Santa Fe and not lose your cred. But it was somewhere that you could get to that was accessible from the rail line, but also had like job potentials and things like that. So,
and prairie dogs and tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
I like the song. This is a fun song though. I will call it. I'll call it a 4 out of 5, a download, just because it is a fun song to sing along with. I'll Cover You is a really good song as far as like really solidifying that connection between Collins and Angel. And I think you need that song for Without You to be successful later.
Yeah.
I'll Cover You, again, not a huge hard rock song at all, but a lot of fun as far as like being able to sing along with it, listening to it. Character development, I call it a good like download, 4 out of 5. Over the Moon, this is like the Jack and Jill went up the hill, or no, it's the what's the one, the Fetch a Pail. No, I'm getting my nursery rhymes mixed up. It's not Jack and Jill. It's the
Fork and the Spoon.
Fork and the Spoon jump over.
Hey, diddle, the cow and the fiddle.
Yeah.
The cow jumped over the moon. Yeah.
So this is like Maureen's like character development here. The problem with this is more of a spoken word.
Yeah, it's a minor
song. The real like the only thing like is really sung in this is the only thing to do is jump over the moon. Yeah, and as Max was saying in the chat, there's a lot of mooing going on in this song.
I think I would just.
I'll give us some credit in the fact that like you go ahead, name me another song where you just start mooing. I mean,
in Gypsy, it's I've got a new class.
All right. I guess I did ask.
Only you, Preston. Only you.
I love you.
I did ask for another song, so I mean, my fault.
Asking Charlie Steve.
This is gonna be the Over the Moon. Out of every song on this soundtrack, this is the one that I will typically skip, unless I just have the Rent soundtrack playing in the background while I'm cleaning house or something. Just it's just background music to me. If I'm purposely listening to the soundtrack, I will probably skip Over the Moon. I will actually give it my skip it.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have any limits to those. Preston, what are your thoughts on these 4 songs?
So controversial. Will I is gorgeous. I love Will I. I think the round format for Will I is like perfectly utilized, because it's like all these different people are united by these 3 simple universal feelings, and you're trapped, and so you're truly just going around and around and around. So the use of the round I think is super effective. I love it. I will never skip it. I will always sing along to it. It is not like a rockin' song to me. It's like in terms of the word rockin', I'm gonna go with a download it. But in terms of like heartfelt, meaningful, I will tear up. It's a 5 out of 5. Just like simplicity in Rent can hit so hard. And I think that one of the things that does work really well is the moments that they choose to be simple are really effective, because it is so chaotic.
I should probably come up with another term that's an alternate to rockin'. For stuff that's not rocking.
I understand the sense.
A sad bomb.
Santa Fe, I don't have anything. I think Santa Fe should be there. I get why it's there. I get what it does. I like don't care for it. It's a personal thing. I've been making my way listen. It just like it does not resonate with me. It is the one song in the film that I actually do appreciate the branching out of the world. I think they kind of created this iconic subway dance that they do. Other than that, I actually feel like the movie to me feels really unsuccessful and awkward, because Rent is to some degree a fairy tale. It's a fantasy. Especially with the ending the way that it is. And so to put it in the real world to me takes away a lot of the suspension of that I'm able to like afford it to make it feel really successful. But Santa Fe, I do like what they do. It's like the one actually I'm like, okay. I'll Cover You is so rockin'. That's how it's like yeah. You're screaming, which I know because I've done it for karaoke with my sister. recently, like in memory.
That's a karaoke
thing with your sister
on a cruise ship. I love I'll Cover You. Just a beautiful love song for them. And on this album, you don't get the lead up to their relationship like you do when you get the Coat song and when you get like their dialogue that's sung. Like, so I'll Cover You is a 5 out of 5 for me. It's just like you need it to establish their relationship, and they're very successful. Jesse L. Martin will always make me cry. I love him so much. Over the Moon, slander over here. I used Over the Moon to audition in 6th grade for a production of Seussical.
That's a choice.
What? Okay.
That's a choice.
Pick out of the hat. However, to me, Over the Moon is only super successful when it's live. It's such a good take on pretentious downtown art by someone who's just like not very good at it. It's an extraordinary send-off to those people. I know so many. No one in my life personally. You can't guess who you are. It's no one who knows me. But it's extraordinarily, when it's performed really well, it's super, super funny. Also, there's enough sung throughout it, and everything that's sung throughout it has to be really impressive because it kind of comes out of nowhere. So you have to like start on a really powerful note and like slide up and around, and you can this version, I can do a one-time listen. I do a shuffle it for this version because I do respect Over the Moon, but the zest of it comes from the live performance. And I will say Vanessa Hudgens knocked it out of the park in that Rent Live. I think she nailed the essence of Over the Moon, and she's got the vocals to work all the right moments. So that is my prime Over the Moon right now. I like Adina, but Vanessa really brought it home for me. And yeah, this version is a shuffle. It's a 3.
Biddy bong.
All right. So Will I, like everyone else said, it's beautiful. It's one of those kind of like the other, I struggle with where to rank it because I think it deserves a 5 for the musicality, what it does, what it can invoke in you, and what it does with our characters. I personally can't listen to it in a like playlist type of situation because it is just so heavy. So I think it deserves a 5 on all of the musicality points. It is beautiful. It really, really, again, I think a little bit more in the stage musical versus the movie musical, but still in the movie musical, it really puts you in this mindset of what is being going on, especially when the characters who don't have HIV end up coming into it. Like when you realize that there is this thing that's going on and this big thing and all of the fears that these people have, but then everyone who's not even dealing with that still have the same fears. And it kind of like brings all of this to this level of like, oh my gosh, like all of us are kind of going through our own really heavy stuff. Santa Fe, I love, I adore. It's so fun. Mm-hmm. I kind of get Preston's point too. The choice of what was made with the movie is like, and I think that's my greater overarch. I know we're not supposed to like put it in the point of the movie, but like Rent kind of loses some of its magic because it shows you so much in the movie when the songs do so much on their own. So like, I give Santa Fe a 5 because I love it. I will jam out to it. I will sing it all the freaking time. Like when I lived in New Mexico, we actually drove to Santa Fe. It wasn't that far. I was in Glorieta, which is not far from Santa Fe, because someone opened a restaurant styled as if they were the Rent characters. So awesome. We went to that restaurant. Like it's just like a dive diner in Santa Fe that like everyone says is the Rent diner. I don't know if it's still there. This was like 12, 13 years ago, but it was a fun college thing to do. So I give that one a 5 for sure. I'll Cover You. I don't know our list. Or do we have the reprise later?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay. So I give this version a 5. I think I Cover You is so beautiful. And I do get that a little bit is missing from the movie. But again, I think this song does so much lyrically and just like connected. And it is one of the few times, even in the early 2000s, that we see two men singing a love song to each other, that I have seen so many hetero couples sing to each other since, that it's like, it just really shows how the love transcends and is everything you want out of a relationship. And after you've seen what Roger and Mimi are going through and the mess with Maureen, like, just to see these two people that are so in love with each other that they will tromp around New York City. Again, like, I know that's in the context, but that's still like just how powerful they're singing it to them. I think it deserves all the accolades in the world. Over the Moon, I just hate it. I'm sorry, Preston. I hate it. It's a skip it for me. But you might have moved it up a little bit in my head in thinking of it as being someone who's trying to do theater and is failing miserably, because I've always hated it, because I'm like, this sucks. I'm like, this sucks. Like, I'm supposed to like this. But thinking of it as like, no, Maureen is terrible at what she does. It kind of serves that purpose.
It's genius.
Yeah. Like, thinking it more of like Larson was writing about someone he probably saw and was like, all these awful people who make this theater in lots in the Lower East Side. Like, it makes more sense in that, like, that we're not supposed to enjoy what Maureen does.
Yeah. But everyone's clapping like,
yeah. And like, just saying live, I am not a fan of the fourth wall break in the theater. Like, please keep that shit on the stage. So, especially in Rent, when, like, I don't mind it in Hedwig, because Hedwig is supposed to be a concert and the, like, it is set up. I don't like that just with the Moo is the only time we break the fourth wall. And I think the Moo is what has created the issue now going forward past Rent, where if a character asks a rhetorical question, everyone thinks it's for them, that it's a fourth wall break moment. Because from my understanding, you weren't supposed to move back to Maureen. It kind of just happened and has been like now a part of the lore of Rent. And so I don't mind fourth wall breaking when it's established and runs through a piece, but like in the middle of a piece, in the middle of a song,
It doesn't make much sense.
It doesn't make any sense that you break the fourth wall and now we are the audience on the Lower East Side. Like, I just don't get the song.
I think it's supposed to make you as uncomfortable as you would be watching your terrible friend's show in an alley.
That's why you go to that and you have a couple of drinks. You're like, boo!
You're like, do I moo with her? I don't want to.
I'm like, 3. Let's go.
When you're like, was that rhetorical, or are you asking me to partake in this piece now? So,
yeah, I kind of agree with Liz about Over the Moon. Yes, Preston, when you do put the context of it being live and it having that atmosphere, that's great. That's just not on the soundtrack, and it's just not there in this version, and this version could go into the trash and throw itself out. I really do not like it too much. Sorry, I'm being a little too harsh.
It's there.
But yeah,
I love honest Chris.
If this was Vanessa Hudgens, I would teleport to your house.
No. But no, I'll cover you though, to pick you off back off the negativity. Is I'll cover you, I think, is one of the greatest duets on stage ever. The song itself, I think it's up there with Suddenly Seymour and some of the great duets. I think this also, it's universal. It can be man and man, woman and man, man, trans, anything.
Brother and sister.
Well,
That was our karaoke.
Okay, well, yeah, you could go that
That's why Chris and I said, I was like, well, that's a choice for siblings karaoke.
Not the weirdest one we've done. Anyway.
Okay.
Now, I feel like when this is all over, we need to go on a cruise, because I need to experience the Preston sibling karaoke.
That would be great. But I'll cover you as a rock, and I really enjoy it. Santa Fe, I kind of agree with Preston in that it doesn't really, not really attached to it. It's nice. His voice is great. I just don't really feel anything with it. It's a nice feel-good song. I gave it a solid one-time listen. It's nothing really too bad or good. It's just there for me. And I have here in my notes, great guitar. And I love the lyrics. And I think, yes, it does cut very deep. Like I probably should have put this in the previous sweep because it kind of thematically fit with that one better. But this does bring in a lot of emotion. I gave it a solid download. But we're going to move on to the next sweep, which is essentially one giant fucking song. La Vie Boheme, I should tell you in La Vie Boheme 2. I will say right off the bat, La Vie Boheme, people say, it's basically the theater kid version of We Didn't Start the Fire. A lot of lyrics. It's a mouthful, but it's a great set piece in the middle of a restaurant and them on tables and humping each other and stuff. Well, no, I mean like they're like getting really intimate and stuff on the tables and things, and they're really getting like really sexualized, and it's really really well staged. The problem I have with it is that it's separated it into two sections on the soundtrack, and then they go outside and they have a talk, and there's a little song in there that kind of deflates the pace of it. If La Vie Boheme 1 and 2 were put together, they would be my hard rockin', but since it's kind of separated into pieces, and I feel like I should tell you as a skip it because I feel like that song does nothing to kind of keep the momentum of this scene together. In my opinion, you guys could tell me otherwise. La Vie Boheme is rocking. The sequel is rocking, but the fact that it's the middle part just takes away all the momentum. It kind of kills me to give it a one-time listen. Preston, do you agree with me or disagree with me about La Vie Boheme?
I agree with you. After the first La Vie Boheme, like it's like I'm like the act is over. Like there's more. I'm like I don't need much more. I mean, I love La Vie Boheme. I will say that outside of the musical, I think it's clear that or the stage musical, that this soundtrack version is missing information. So while my brain is used to hearing things, but not only like in Rent, I understand why they're gone. In this, my brain wants like that she's my sister. Like we're just missing a bunch of pieces of it. So while it wanted to be a rockin', it is a rockin', but this version to me is a download it. I just feel like I'm missing a lot of it. I Should Tell You is one of the only songs in Rent where I like, there's a lot I can forgive because they're like young and they're awkward and I like that they speak that way. But I Should Tell You is so awkward. And there's some lines in it where I'm just like, part of it is really lovely. Part of it is articulated beautifully. And part of it is just like, what are you saying? And it's like, just like certain lines floating around. And I'm like, it has never done it for me in any way. I would have liked to have heard a rewrite of the song in that moment. Of course, we never will. So I Should Tell You holds a special place in my heart as the song where I go, okay, they're just saying fragments and that's lovely for that. I'm going to give it a one-time listen because I only have one skip it and I feel very passionately. I don't feel as passionate.
No, you get skip it's are unlimited.
I know, but I only feel skip it about one song and I feel it passionately. Rent is like a listen through for me.
I can't wait for this passionate skip it because I feel like it's going to be controversial.
This is going to be like the dumpster fire song of the whole soundtrack.
No, it is. You're going to love it. I mean, it's so mean. La Vie Boheme 2 is just, back to the Boheme. I don't even want to rate it. I guess it's like a shuffle it because it's still there. It's still La Vie Boheme. But yeah, I think in a perfect world, there would have been some reevaluation of how that act ends because the triumph of it is so necessary. And I Should Tell You is just such a weird kind of dissonant, lower register moment. But I'm going to chalk that up to like previews and not doing the rewrites that I think that moment actually would have benefited.
Rob, question: what are your thoughts on these three songs, which is essentially just a giant medley, the finale of Act 2? What actually was different between this and the stage version? If you know, I don't know if anything was different or not.
There, like the stage musical, there's a lot more to this. It's a much grander production. But as far as the movie goes, so La Vie Boheme, I guess Part A, if we want to call it that. That was the other one that I'm wrestling with calling my hard rockin'. I love La Vie Boheme, but I like I like songs like, especially if you're gonna go kind of like poppy, like big production number type songs. I like songs that are quick and fast. I like, for example, I love Bare Naked Ladies' "1 Week." I love what's REM's "It's the End of the World," because you're like just like the verse is so fast paced. My favorite, Savage Garden's "I Want You," Chicka Cherry Cola, just because of how fast those verses are. That's what kind of like La Vie Boheme brings to that. Today's of Inspiration, giving nothing out of, making something out of nothing. Like, it's just a fast paced grouping of random words that just so happens to make sense, and it works very well. I'm still on the fence whether or not I want to give the hard rockin' to either this or one song Glory, though.
This was the one that you were dividing.
Yeah, this is the one that I'm juggling between the two of them. I'll come back to it before I'm done talking here, though. I should tell you, yeah, great for setting up that finally Roger and Mimi are connecting, but otherwise, exactly what y'all said. It kills the mood between La Vie Boheme A and La Vie Boheme B. And it's a good song. It's where they both, well, I mean, the end of La Vie Boheme is where they find out that they're both HIV positive, needing to take their AZT. But I feel there's a good solid connection there. I will call, I should tell you, I'll call it a shuffle it, because I feel like it needs to be there, even if you're just listening to the soundtrack. The soundtrack itself has a story, and I feel like it's definitely needed to be a part of the story of the soundtrack. La Vie Boheme 2 just brings it right back. Like, now that these two have reconciled, they're in love with each other. Now it's a party. Let's come back to where we were doing before, and let's continue on with the celebration. La Vie Boheme 2, download. It's fun, but yeah, I will give the first La Vie Boheme Part A. I will make that my hard rockin', and going back, making One Song Glory a rockin' 5 out of 5.
Well, that gives you one more hard rockin' to use,
and I know where to use it too.
Liz, do you have differing opinions on I Should Tell You? Or are you on the same boat?
I feel kind of the same way with Preston, that like I Should Tell You is kind of just there, and it is what it is. I think it's one of those things that this triad, making the choice of splitting it up, especially on a soundtrack, doesn't make much sense to me. And it is an issue I've had on a broader spectrum of the musical soundtrack as a genre, is that so many songs get split apart. So for Rent's case, this one, producers decided, they're 3 separately named songs. Let's put them on 3 separately named tracks. And they don't function without each other. Like, I Should Tell You doesn't function on its own. It is a moment inside of La Vie Boheme that happens and is just between 2 characters, while La Vie Boheme is still going on in the background. Like, if you, in the movie, if you watch it on the live version, like, the debauchery of La Vie Boheme is still happening in the background. So for me, La Vie Boheme and La Vie Boheme 2, I still put in a 4, because I think they're both needed with each other. Very much skewing towards a 5, because I am a musical theater nerd, and what musical theater nerd doesn't jam out to these songs? Yeah. I Should Tell You is just like, whatever. Like, I guess I would give it a 2, because it's not bad. It's just like, what purpose does it serve? But I think it's also the moment where this is clearly where Rent becomes a period piece. And a lot of people who get more nitty gritty start to have their problems, because this is supposed to take place in '89. AZT was already not on the schedule that it is in Rent by the time that happens. So again, things that probably would have been cleared up, and they chose not to clear up as it has been gone on, because Rent is one of those things that you don't touch it because Jonathan Larson didn't get to touch it, and do not upset the theater world by touching Rent. And it's one of those moments that it is just like kind of clunky, because where they're supposed to be time-wise, it's it doesn't really fit right. And so you kind of lose all of the other like stuff that you had. But again, I think that's more a movie issue because the movie distinctly says what year it is. The stage version does not. The stage version, we know we're somewhere in the AIDS crisis, mid 80s ish. The movie made the mistake of putting an exact year as the December 25th. And that kind of messes up because I think the movie is 89 into 90, or it's 90 into 91. Yep. And that messes up with these moments that are very specific to the AIDS crisis because AZT.
There's another one too, but
yeah, AZT would not have been an AZT break would not have been a thing in that specific year because it already was not being used as the treatment for AIDS. Yeah. And so it was the thing of like I think it suffers because of that. But that's one of those that I could forgive it. Like I don't pay attention to it when it happens. I just think the song is not great. Like it's one of those you either choose to just not put on your soundtrack because it is more of spoken word that is to establish something in a scene, or you connect all three of these together and you don't give yourself the ability to get through it. Because if you're shuffling a soundtrack, when those hit and you get I Should Tell You or Love V Bo MB, you're like, what? Like, where's the rest of the song?
Yeah. I do wish that these were all just one track. That would just annihilate all of it, and this would probably be my hard rockin'. But again, this is released in 3 separate tracks. You can't be on Spotify and merge them. I wish that was a thing. But you can't do that. So we're going to move on though to Act 2, which it gets really dark here. Seasons of Love B. Take Me or Leave Me, Without You, and I'll Cover You. This is where Angel sadly passes on. I'm going to throw it to you, Preston. What are your thoughts on these 4 songs?
What about you?
Yeah.
What Seasons of Love B? Come on. What is this?
B.
I don't need Seasons of Love B. It's fine. I was surprised by it. I was like, you got the point across in the first moment of it, for where you chose to put it. I mean, it's a one-time listen because it's Seasons of Love. It comes back, might as well. Take Me or Leave Me, an iconic queer fury duet.
Queer fury. Are there quite a few queer fury duets?
Many queer fury duets. I would count What Is This Feeling from Wicked, Idina Menzel, queen of queer fury duets. So yeah, I love it. That's a hard rockin' for me. I just think it's one of those classic. There's also a great version of it on YouTube where a girl falls off the stage, and it's very entertaining.
Wait, what?
It's like a college production or like a showcase. She's just like, fuck. Anyway, she's safe so we can laugh. Without You is so gorgeous to me. It's gorgeous to me. It is beautiful. It's, I think, one of the most honest songs in Rent. It's just like one of those songs you can sometimes just like feel something really meant something to the writer. And it's a little bit of like an extrapolation of Will I. And that's a sad bop rockin' for me. So that's 2 in a row again. I'll Cover You Reprise is complicated. Well, where's the sex song? I actually completely understand why it's gone, but we all love that sex song. I'll Cover You Reprise in this album to me is a download it in live versions of it, including Brandon Victor Dixon's version of it, and anytime Jesse L. Martin touches it. It's, I think, one of the most moving songs in musical theater. Like, I just think the reprise can be so affecting. It doesn't have the same grip on me from this album and from the way that the movie actualizes it. So it's a 4 out of 5, but I want to be clear. I think it is so gorgeous.
Good. Well said, Robert.
I mean, I kind of agree with like the Seasons of Love. The Seasons of Love B, I like only in the context of this movie. Because Seasons of Love B is basically taking the place of where Seasons of Love A would be normally. Yeah, I mean, the second act begins with Seasons of Love. So that really kind of like, hey, all that shit that you saw at the beginning of this, this is where it's really focused on. This is the focal point. Like, it's all about love, and that's what this whole musical is trying to get like into your brain. So I mean, Seasons of Love B, if you're only familiar with the movie and the movie soundtrack, it works. It's fine. It's a nice callback to the fact that Seasons of Love is at the beginning of this. It's a nice little thread to kind of still like bring you back. I'll call it like a shuffle it 3 out of 5. Take Me or Leave Me easily is a rockin' 5 out of 5. This is probably the other big song from this movie other than Seasons of Love. This is the one that I see most of all after Seasons of Love. So yeah, Without You is a really good, touching song. But it is, again, it's in the same vein as the Life Support or Will I. It's a slow song, but it's a good slow song. But that's the song that Angel dies in the movie. Make sure to clarify. In the movie, he dies during that song. The stage performance is something completely different.
What's different about it?
The stage performance, they have this like he was saying earlier, they have an entire song about people having sex and climaxing.
Yeah, it's a song
and he dies at the end of that.
Yeah, as someone who was not aware of the like stage musical version of Rent when she went and saw it and knew that there were drastic differences, Contact came out of nowhere for me.
Oh, right. Wow.
And it's so much more powerful when Angel passes in Contact, because you are watching them kind of, the song starts with everyone's relationships going well, and it's very sexy and hot and heavy. And then as the song progresses, that's when you see the downfall of all of their relationships. Like, and there are lyrics about like not being able to get the vibrator in and things like that, and like slipping and all of this.
Yeah.
And everything literally crashes around them. And then Angel is on stage dead. Like, or dying.
And that's the moment where
so rough.
That's the moment where she says "Today for me." So that's a good come around for that song where you hear her kind of this is I need help now in Contact.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that like you start on this such high place like of intimacy with the characters, everything, and you crash and burn at the end with everything destroyed. And I think without Contact, a lot of the Act 2 songs will lose some of their like fit into where did these relationships go? Because in the movie, again, the movie relies on a lot of showing you. Mm-hmm. The musical does a lot of letting the music lead you there. And Contact is the song you need where things start to go south for everybody.
Wow.
Yeah. So Without You it's a good song, but it's used to kind of supplement that. Without You in the movie of the context of
kind of a band-aid to kind of heal that they took out. I see that now. Okay, that brings it down a little.
Without You is a really good, still touching song. I will call it a download 4 out of 5. I'll Cover You, the reprise. I agree with what's been said already. That song is fantastic. That is nothing but pure emotion from Collins on that. Even though it doesn't rock, it's a rocking song. 5 out of 5. Yeah. That's one of the tops of this entire soundtrack.
I might just, for these types of songs, call it soft rocking. I think that's probably what I'm going to do from now on, because I'll Cover You is soft rocking, in my opinion. Yes, I feel like that's a huge emotion pinnacle of the emotional pinnacle of the entire film version. At least I had no idea about all of this cut stuff and how Without You kind of acts as more of like an emotional band-aid than anything else. It is a very well crafted song, and the emotion is there. But now that I'm thinking that maybe there could have been just a little bit more, but it's still very beautiful. I give it a solid download instead of the rockin' I was going to. Take Me or Leave Me. This is a great duet between two very passionate women who are just angry, and it's just, you can feel it is glorious catfighting at its finest. And Seasons of Love B, it's M&Ms and Coca-Cola. It's great. There's no substance. Yeah. I'm just gonna say it loud and clear. There's no substance because we just had it at the beginning, and it just feels like, you know what? Let's visually make this the second part of the movie, and they did it. But I wish there was a little bit more to it than just Seasons of Love. A little more beat, a little bit more instrumentation. Give me some cornflakes. I'm not really that interested. Liz, what are your thoughts on these 4 songs?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Seasons of Love. I think it loses its impact because we see it in the beginning, and they don't really do anything to make it justify a B. Like, there was no change to it. Like, you just get Seasons of Love again. Like, Take Me or Leave Me, I adore. It is a great song. Like, everyone who needs to have an angry, like, passionate song can use Take Me or Leave Me. If anyone wants to see a great version, there was a Broadway Backwards with Aaron Tveit and Gravin Creel, which I think is still online on YouTube for Broadway Backwards. For those who don't know, Broadway Backwards is where they gender bend songs, and it is performed in a very expensive cabaret, we found out, because Max and I wanted to go one year, and it's so expensive. But all the money does go to, I think, Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And so... Sorry, Oswald is being a nuisance behind me.
There's also
so it's very great cause.
There's a version done by Kiala Settle that's really good too.
Oh, it's amazing.
Without You, I think, as we've all said, it functions in the musical, in the movie, but it kind of loses its impact when it has to carry all of the weight that should have been carried in the next song. I'll Cover You Reprise is my other 6. I adore, like, it's weird to put such a sad and heavy song as a 6, but this version of I Cover You Reprise, not just the movie, just meaning the reprise version of I Cover You, is just so powerful. Actually, the first time I saw the musical live, that was the problem, in that my Collins was the Collins, I will not name names because I don't remember, but he did not want to kiss Angel. He's one of the few actors who chose it because he was I don't know why you would take the role if you're not going to lean into it, because that's such an iconic LGBTQ love story and is so powerful. I actually was so upset about that presentation because it kind of ruins all of Rent if you don't have a good moment there. But this version, the version from the live recording on television, all of it, when my friend sang it at a friend's wedding, which the reprise may not be the version to choose for a wedding, but that's what they went with. They're not married anymore, so maybe it was I'm starting to think I'll Cover You is like the last 5 years. Like, you just don't touch it unless you want your marriage to be done with. Like, because that's a joke in musical theater. Nobody ever get the last 5 years sung at their wedding. It is a musical about divorce. Like, do not take those songs out of context and sing them at the beginning of your wedding.
No offense if you've done that. Only I think it's weird.
I guess it's really common that people get like, we had joked that we would have Shiksa Goddess, and then we were like, but you can't, because I am not Jewish, or I am Jewish now. I was not Jewish back then, and I was marrying a Jew, so Shiksa Goddess is kind of hilarious, but you don't play those songs at a wedding.
Yeah. Can we still sing Memory at a funeral, though? Is that okay?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Like, I'll Cover You reprise would make more sense at a funeral.
Yeah. Well, let me.
But I just love the reprise. I think it has so much emotion, so much heart. So it is my other 6. And the other Seasons of Love, it's hard to know where to put it because they just redo a song that like they had chosen. It's one of those, like I said earlier, I think like the producers felt like, oh, we can't mess with it too much. So even though we used it earlier to establish the song that everyone knows from Rent, to like get everyone on board and get the average film consumer into this musical and feeling comfortable with a musical, we can't not use it later. And so it's just weird. It's a somewhere between a 3 and a 4. I don't really
it's just
like.
there.
I don't know what to do with it.
It's a
Take
film.
me or leave. Yeah.
Isn't that the only song? I mean, other than like Love Heals, we'll probably talk about that later, but that's the only song in this movie that actually wasn't a part of the original musical. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember if Seasons of Love B was a part of the musical.
No, because there was no Seasons of Love A in the Seasons of Love happens, and then there is a Seasons of Love reprise at some point in the stage musical.
Is that supposed to be B?
Because the reprise is where the soloists are. Right, yeah. So it's like they shift it, but it doesn't. I don't think it works as well the way they do it. It feels wonky. Take Me or Leave Me is a 5.
Movies don't have a definite Act 1 and Act 2, so
yeah. And then Without You, I put it kind of on a 3. It serves its purpose. It's a good song. It's not one that I keep returning to a ton.
All right, so we're gonna move on to the 2 cut songs that are on the movie soundtrack that are not in the actual film itself: "Halloween" and "Goodbye Love." This is essentially the aftermath of Angel's passing and the funeral. Preston, I'm going to throw it to you. What are your thoughts on these 2 songs? Now, you can give them a rating, but I'm going to ask you 2 things for both of them. Give me the rating, but also cut it, or would you have kept it in the film?
Ooh, see, I don't remember the flow of the film, so I'm not sure. Goodbye Love, no. Halloween, I just don't remember how much time you spend with Mark.
Yeah.
Because in the musical, it's so through his lens, like he's filming it all, like. And in the movie, I don't remember quite how much it's through his lens. Because Halloween is like Mark's reflection on being.
Yeah, it's his reflection.
Yeah, like, and Goodbye Love. Wait, I listened to it today, but it's Goodbye Love, the one where Mark is like, "I'm the one who lives, and you're not."
Yeah, it has the musical theme of like "Lean on Me" and stuff. It has. Yeah.
Goodbye Love is. They're both like necessary for Rent, so I was like, oh, they're cut. But I guess they both make sense as being cut. If you don't need to hear that much from Mark, you like don't need his checkpoint. It is a hard rock, and when I'm singing through as Mark, I'm like, yeah, Halloween. But as like far as like it's a shuffle it, I guess. I'm like listening. Yeah, I guess you can cut it. You can cut Halloween. Goodbye Love. Goodbye Love, I think you kind of need because there's so much that happens in that song.
There's
so much. I would say yes. I would also say it's like a shuffle it because I don't listen to it, but it is beautiful. And if you are listening through for the content, you need it in a way you don't need Halloween. So I guess I would prioritize Goodbye Love.
Yeah, I kind of am on the same wavelength as you. Rob, what are your thoughts on these 2 cut songs?
Halloween, yeah, it's Mark's reflection. Where's that come in the movie? That comes right after Angel dies with I'll cover you.
He's in the woods.
I mean, it as far as the flow of the movie, it might have fit potentially. Oh well, no, it wouldn't have, because in the movie you go from "I'll cover you" at the the church straight into the at the funeral out on the grass where a portion of Goodbye Love takes place where they all start bickering at each other, and then Collins has to come in and is like, "You all said that you'd be cool today."
So you would have to cut the momentum of both of that to fit Halloween.
Yeah, I get that. Thinking about it, I completely get why Halloween was cut from the movie. It is a good song, though. Like, I mean, if you're just listening to the soundtrack, the flow of the soundtrack is perfectly fine with Halloween being in there. And I like it that it's a nice, like, self-reflection from Mark. That one I might put like as a shuffle it. It's good. It deserves, like, if you're listening to the soundtrack all the way through, it fits perfectly fine. Movie, not so much. Goodbye Love. The problem with Goodbye Love is there's so much of that song that is actually in the movie, and then them bickering is in the movie, but then the end of that is where
Yeah.
Mimi is really having issues, and that Roger wants to take off to Santa Fe. And so Mimi's like, okay, I'm going to go to rehab. Benny says he'll pay for it, type of thing. Which that's really key. And I wish it was in the movie just because it really helps as far as character development. But I kind of get why not, because again, you're talking about in the movie, you jump from Angel's funeral to this bickering, and then like the stuff that is sung in Goodbye Love is kind of just talked about. Like Roger's like, I'm gonna take off to Santa Fe, peace out, and then he leaves, and that's it. And then it jumps straight into What You Own. So Goodbye Love, I felt, is necessary on the soundtrack because you still get that emotion that's in there. And I wish it was in the movie, but I get why it's not. Goodbye Love as a whole, I'll call it a 4 out of 5 download. There's a couple of pieces in there, like real quick. The one thing I do remember from Goodbye Love, like that was in the movie, they're bickering, is the one part where they're saying, I'd be happy to give, I'd happy to die for a piece of what Angel has. That is like easily one of the best lines in all of the songs.
Yeah. Liz, what are your thoughts on these two songs? And do you have any strong feelings on Goodbye Love and stuff?
I think both songs on their own, like in the world of the soundtrack, should be 4s. I think they're necessary songs for the soundtrack because, like I've said a couple of times, the Rent movie made the choice to show a lot of what is sung on the stage, and so Halloween and Goodbye Love are definitely necessary if you don't have the images of it. Mark reflecting on everything, like those lyrics, and even when he's kind of self-deprecating of himself, when he's like, on the IMAX of my life, that's poetic, that's pathetic. Like there's so much there that's important to Mark as a character. And I think the movie kind of loses Mark. He gets a little muddled in that we don't spend enough time with him, even though Rent is supposed to be this story from the movie that Mark is making. Like that's the perspective we're getting. That's the lens we see most of it through. Like occasionally you get the individualized things when Mark's not there, but when Mark's there, he's always recording. It's from his vision. So I think that song's kind of needed. It's a little wonky how it's done with the choices they make in the movie. So it doesn't, I get why they chose not to do it, because to then pull away from the group and have Mark's introspective, it doesn't function as well with a movie. But I do think in the soundtrack, it's important to put in that context. Yeah. Goodbye Love, I think it's a shame that it's gone. Like there is so much that happens in Goodbye Love that is so important for the rest of the film. And like, yes, it happens, but it's so much more poetic and powerful in the song. Mark selling his guitar, buying a car to move to Santa Fe, like it's established like Mark is leaving. And it comes back to that later. And Mimi having her like breakthrough of like, no, I definitely need to go to rehab. And part of what I think the issue is the movie doesn't do a great job of establishing that this is a year. So I never thought Goodbye Love happens right after the funeral. Like Halloween happens after Seasons of Love, and like Mark is kind of walking around the funeral, like the graveyard or the cemetery, and like really trying to reflect on what has happened to this group of friends. And I always put Goodbye Love like a little bit later from that. Like we're seeing the fallout of Angel being missing from this group and them having to actually deal with their lives, because Angel kind of was the glue that held them together and made sure everyone had food. She was kind of the mom of the group, or he was the kind of the mom of the group of like, I mean, his introduction is literally him coming in and throwing money at them. So like he's gone, and he was the one getting them to go to their meetings and like really just holding this little group together and making it seem like that needed to happen right as he's literally being laid in the ground kind of misses the fact that they sit
Make
with the
things go
heaviness.
quickly.
Yeah. And that they're like that the fight happens like right when he's being buried, and oh, you said you were going to be good today, and it's like I never put that the downfall of their group happened until after his funeral. So trying to like shove it into the funeral is like, we're just going to quickly roll through this and act like Thanksgiving doesn't exist. And to me, Goodbye Love should have been more in like the November-ish Thanksgiving world of where they're going forward in their story of a year. And so
instead I feel like truncating Goodbye Love. I mean, Halloween's beautiful. I see where it should have been cut from the film, but putting Goodbye Love, as you said, where it was, really makes the finale go by very quick. I mean, we get into the finale next, and it's just boom, 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 boom. Oh, we're done. I feel like they could have taken their time and let it breathe a little bit more. Goodbye Love is a solid rock and by itself. I wish it was there in the final film, Fool as Day. Halloween is beautiful, but I would just recommend that it probably wasn't in the film itself, but it's a great reflection. As you guys said, I gave it a solid one. Download it. But we're going to do this, though. We're going to go right into the finale, which is essentially all these songs strung together. All right, so it's What You Own, which is Living in America, but really after it comes finale A, Your Eyes, finale B, and then the credit song, Love Heals. I'm going to throw it to you, Robert. What are your thoughts on these 4 songs and how it ends the film?
So
really goes right into it. Yeah.
Yeah. What You Own's a good song. This is like the all of a sudden, like now that we're really like in the end game of this movie, it's like, oh, pivot. Yeah. This sucks. Roger doesn't like being in Santa Fe. Mark quits his job at Buzzline. But it's the type of song that I was like, hey, beforehand you sung a song to empower you. You're like, hey, I need to break out and be my own person. And then this is the song that you're like, oh, this sucks. I actually was right before. Let me go back to that. That's what the song I feel like empowers you to do. It's a good song. I'll call it like a good 4 out of 5. Finale A. I think finale A is only there to get to the other 2 songs that follow it. Like finale A is like, hey, by the way, we're about to start singing again. That's the setup that you get from that. I'll call it a shuffle it 3 out of 5. Your Eyes. Here's the downside to this, and I kind of hate the fact that you made me go first on this one.
Oh man,
it's okay. But here's the thing. Your Eyes throughout the entire musical. This is the song that Roger is trying to write. And I was like,
not great, but
could have done a little bit better. All you did is talk about her eyes because you really love Mimi. That's cool. I get that. But you talked about her eyes and then you included Musetta's waltz into it. It could have been a little bit better. If this is the buildup that we've been alluding to this entire movie, it's good. It could have been strong. The only real satisfying part of that, apparently they disagree with me. So the only part that was really strong in this was the pure emotion of Roger just screaming the me. I'm not going to do it at all whatsoever. But him screaming Mimi's name at the end while Musetta's waltz is playing. That is fantastic. That is a great job of incorporating that into this. But otherwise, I like the song. It could have just been a little bit stronger given what we've been building up to.
Mm-hmm.
So on that one, maybe a download. Just it has emotion, but it could have been stronger. That should have been the song that, without a doubt, everyone on this panel should have been easily said, oh yeah, That's the 6 out of 5. That's the song right there. And it doesn't deliver. Finale B will be easily my 6 out of 5. Yeah. I can listen to this song on the soundtrack and I still get chills. Maybe you might need to see the movie first, so you have the visualization of what's happening in the movie while this song is playing. But this song is the culmination of everything that has happened. You hear the guys are singing the "Will I Lose My Dignity" part. The women in the song are singing the "No Day But Today" reprise, basically. Yep. And this all comes up like, again, in the context of the movie, they're all watching Mark's video that he's been making this entire thing. See, Mark's video actually pays off at the end. Roger's song, not so much. So like the culmination of this, of them watching that video, of all of this coming together all in this one major moment, as Mimi is essentially coming back to life and everyone's celebrating. I love this song, and I will always get chills when listening to it, when watching it, and you see that the video playing and it ends with Angel standing there. Mm-hmm. Like, I will tear up at that. So this gets my 6 out of 5 easily. Love Heals is a good song. I feel like Love Heals is a throwback to it's Peebo Bryson, and I forgot who was singing the Beauty and the Beast song from Beauty and the Beast.
There's a lot of soul, yeah.
It's got that soul feeling to it. Yep. It's a really good song. I think it's great. It actually, like, here's the thing, behind the scenes, it actually doesn't show up in the movie at all. In the credits, they replay all the other songs. Love Heals is only on the soundtrack. So it's a good song. I'll call it a download. Yeah, because I like listening to it.
Preston, what are your thoughts on these final sweep of songs? And was Love Heals in the Broadway version or no? No, I didn't think so. Okay.
It was. I just googled. It was written by Jonathan Larson, but in the Broadway. I love What You Own. I think it is a fantastic rarity in that it is an awesome empty rock song, but also the bridge conveys so much information. They like make major choices. They make major life choices very clearly, and they like take action from that. So you get that great blend of like American Idiot, like
kind of it is,
and also also action, which you don't always get. Certainly not in Spring Awakening. And it's where they're just saying words, but they're fantastic. So that's my other 6 out of 5, but I wish it was 2 clicks faster. And I went back to the Cats album, and I was like, is it faster on that? And it's not. It's the same tempo, I think, but I wish it somewhere. I've heard it a little faster. I don't know if they made it faster for the live, but like, yeah. So that if it was a little faster, it would be my 6 out of 5, like easily. But it will hover there since I don't have another one. I like Rent a lot, largely. So a lot of it's just yeah, I think it's knockout. Finale A, I feel like I can't even rate. It's like one chip that you need to like.
Yep, it's the people win thing.
There, I'm not mad about it. But like, I'm never gonna like seek it out. I'm never gonna be like, you know what to really hit right now is Finale A. Your Eyes is so complicated because I think it's like a musical theater joke that like he spent the whole time working on it, and it is just he pulled up Rhyme Zone and picked all the eyes rhymes and really went for it. And so in that vein, like. No, it's like not a good song, especially because one song, Glory, is so good. But I feel like either Jonathan Larson like intended to rewrite it, not to like understand, or I mean, One Song Glory is not a song that that Roger wrote. It's his musical song. That's not a song that exists diegetically, and Your Eyes is. So I feel like there is a chance, and this is kind of why I like it. It's kind of why it gives it. There's a chance that he's just like not a good songwriter, but he's so heart, and he writes this little song called Your Eyes about her eyes, and it rhymes fairly juvenilely, but there is something endearing about it. There's something about the heart behind it where you kind of forgive that it's just like fairly silly little song he wrote. And so I think it's a 3 for me, because usually you're like, my man, you were like, this is my song, I must move. But I do think it's kind of intention to like show just like he's so angsty and he thinks he's such a hard rocker, but at his core he's just like writing this little like dashboard confessional wannabe love song to his girlfriend.
That's what it is right there.
I think it's pretty cute, so I'm gonna give it the 3. Finale B, I love a Megamix. Turn up a Megamix all day, all night. End a show on a Megamix is my favorite thing to do. So I'm comfortable. So I guess it's a 5 out of 5. I never like run to Finale B, but I enjoy it. I miss the whole and Angel was that, even though it's so cheesy, so actually like it's better to not hear that whole Mimi coming back to life, which I do think defines Rent as like more of a fantasy / fairy tale of what like someone would really hope would happen in kind of a really bleak situation. And so using art to create the positive outcome you may not see in real life, even though it does come out pretty cheesy on like the Cats album. But I do miss it because it really establishes that kind of like hopeful, buoyant like heart that the show has that Your Eyes kind of encapsulate. So these very well-meaning people who are trying their best. Love Heals is my skip. I know that Jonathan Larson wrote it, but if it was cut from the show, it was cut for a reason. If it's a trunk song, it's fine in the credits, but I will never, ever, ever choose to listen to Love Heals. It does not show me
the credits.
I will walk out of the credits and go to the bathroom. No, I have no hard feelings. It's just like it's not for me. It's not the song.
The reason why I always cut. Most of the stuff that's cut is cut for a reason, and I get that. Liz, what are your thoughts on the finale, Love Heals, and We're Living in America?
Just want to make sure we like this movie, right? We like
yeah, we like this movie.
Yeah.
I'm very critical of what I watch. And so What You Own, I really enjoy it. Like, I think it serves its purpose. It goes back into that whole thing of like with Halloween and all of that like you quickly realize that their whole let's fit the story into a year doesn't really function, because we're supposed to believe that somewhere between Halloween and Christmas Eve, Roger has moved to Santa Fe and decided that he does not like Santa Fe and is moving back.
I had friends who do that though.
It's true. People do that. And so
that's barely even a try. That's like a 30-day money-back guarantee type of setup.
And it just happens like that.
But I do love the song. Like, the song is definitely like one I go back to because I like it a lot. So it is, I'll put it as a 4, but it's hanging in between a 4 and a 5. But I do think it's one of those things where, again, because Rent was an unfinished piece, you realize like maybe they would have kind of workshopped a few of those songs earlier into a year and like had Angel die in the summer, perhaps, so that we don't have Angel die and then it just like is like, oh, the year's almost over, so we got to kind of get through this. Because to me, that's like the pinnacle of the story. So it should kind of happen in the middle of a year if you're telling a year-long story, because the resolution is very, very fast. Like, they are all only sad for like 3 weeks, and then they're back to
YouTube.
Yeah. And finale is fine. Like, I don't know how to have it stand alone. But it's not a skip it or anything. I'd put it at a 2 or a 3 because I don't skip it. Like, I don't see myself like searching for it. Your Eyes, I agree. It is super cheesy. And it's funny that Roger in the beginning kind of distinctly says he's trying to write a song that doesn't sound like this, and then it ends up sounding like this. I like it though, so I will play it. I'm going to put it as a 3 in the shuffle because I'll let it be in a shuffle. I don't go to Your Eyes, but I'm not upset when Your Eyes plays. Finale B is the way to end the show. Like, I actually will admit right now, I didn't know Love Heals exist because Finale B happens and I stopped listening. because that's the end of the show. Finale B is a solid 5 because it does what it's supposed to do for a finale. It encapsulates everything. It stands without needing the movie or the rest of the musical or the missing songs. You get the resolution that you needed. Love Heals, I'm going to have to ask Jen Tepper if it actually belonged in Rent or if it was one of his like songs that was discovered when his family turned over all of his notes or what. Like, why is it there? Why did it end up in Rent? Because like I said, I didn't even listen to it when I did my soundtrack re-listen because Finale B happened and I was like, all right, let's go listen to Zoe's playlist because it was done. So I don't feel fair even rating it because it's not Rent to me. Like, this is not a Rent song.
It has little substance. Yeah, I got. Yeah, yeah. It has a lot of soul. It kind of feels. It has a little Motown kind of vibe to it. I mean, I'll give it a solid like one-time listen just because I pity the damn thing. I will say I will. Yeah.
Like dragging under the bus.
Sorry, it just isn't my cup of tea. Finale A in your eyes are literal skip it's for me because you just skip it to go to finale B because it's so good. Your eyes, I'm surprised that was what he wanted to get in. That was his song. I mean, I my headcanon is maybe he is a bad songwriter, like Preston said. That makes that a little bit more magical in a very bad sense. It's still a terrible song. Yeah, but there's skip it's, but I mean, another person's trash is another man's treasure. So if you like it, awesome. If not, you're with us, or at least me. I don't really like it a lot. But what you own, Living in America, that's my other hard rockin'. I dig it. I had that stuck in my head. I will say though, the awesomeness of the song makes up for the fact that right after they argue, basically 20 minutes later, it ends. So I mean, it's just like this is just like it comes in, it rocks, and then oh shit, we're ending. So I mean, this felt like the Fantastic Four film, where right at the end it just started to end really, really quickly, and I mean, I felt like something was missing when I was watching it from a film standpoint. Like it went by really quickly at the end, and a lot of it's due to the fact that 2 of the songs are amazing. The other 2, I would just whatever. But ending on a high note and with another hard rock, and this is a solid sweep. That is it for the soundtrack itself. Before we go into overall thoughts, I just wanted to throw it to you guys. And do you guys have any notable differences from the Broadway version that you would have wished were in the film? I'm going to throw it to you first, Robert.
So the one thing I wanted to go back, kind of like what she was saying earlier. I'm pointing in the wrong direction here. Like you're more at my door and not my wall here. You're talking about like in the fact that the fact that they put this in a movie, they messed with like the time of when this movie takes place. The one that I immediately, when I first started like getting into this, I pointed out, or it jumped out at me. It was like, back when Angel is singing the Today for You, she's talking about how like Thelma and Louise did when they got the blue swan dive, whatever. Thelma and Louise had not come out yet. so yeah, like this movie's supposed to take place in like 89 and 90. Thelma and Louise didn't come out till like I think 91. Movie release dates, whatever. Yeah, Thelma and Louise had not come out yet, so I was like, that's a little weird and awkward. Otherwise, the stuff with the difference between the stage performance, I like the little bits that, like, say, in the stage performance, you had the voicemails that kind of gave a little more insight. We were talking about how, like, in the movie, you have no idea that Mark comes from that affluent background. The stage performance, because the mom and dad are constantly calling, or at least the mom is constantly calling and leaving voicemails, dropping like little clues and hints about Mark's background, like, oh my God, are you being treated badly? Let's treat you better, type of thing. You shouldn't be living like this. And there's a couple other songs that take place in there that I liked. What's that one song? The We're Okay.
Oh yeah, We're Okay.
Yeah, I love that song because it's like I feel like that's like most people 90% of the time. We don't know what the hell we're doing, but we're okay type of thing. And then you lose the essentially the angelic chorus that's in this movie that are constantly singing the Christmas time is springing or whatever. You lose that because that's the people on the side that are living in this world that aren't major characters, and you see like from their point of view in those instances how this world works outside of our main characters. And I like that dynamic. We don't have that in this movie at all. We're completely focused on the main characters and that's it.
Yeah, you don't get much of the people outside. Preston.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so extraordinary about the cast album that drew me to it so much as a kid, like I remember spending hours like playing solitaire and singing along to the cast album, is the whole show is on it. You can get the whole show from it. You understand the nuances of every character, the voicemails and Christmas Day and Happy New Year, and it adds so much depth and it adds some like you can. Like as a kid who couldn't see the shows and who was like guessing at like what was happening in these shows I loved, this one I didn't have a problem. This one I could just like feel immersed in it, and so I miss those moments. I know that in my own work I've cut interstitial dialogue that I wish I hadn't from albums, but in this it's like it's part of the orders in La Vie Boheme, the Joanne in the song Rent, like they're part of the show. So it's bizarre to me that they tried to make it so mainstream that they didn't think the audiences would like tolerate the musical theater singing of it all, and they stuck closer to like the song bits. And I'm like, no, like the audience would have been fine with these pieces. It fleshes out the characters, it adds depth, and you can, it makes you excited to see it when you feel like you know the characters. Which is maybe why I'm not as excited about the film. So I miss that a lot. We talked about this a little bit, but like I think that casting the age appropriate people would have been really great for the film. The show is not the actors who did it. They had an extraordinary opening night first cast. They had an extraordinary cast. However, the show is about young people in New York struggling to survive. And when you make it about the experience of seeing Rent in its iconic moment and you kind of try to crystallize that and you keep that cast, you like take it away from what makes it so powerful and makes you be able to see the frayed edges is the youth of these kids. So I do miss that. I think I would have loved to have seen like young people in kind of this indie, grainy, like Pieces of April-esque New York for a film version that maintained a lot of the spoken sung dialogue. But that's why I have the taped version of the Broadway one.
Basically an audio drum. Liz, what are your thoughts on any differences you want to talk about?
Yeah, so Robert brought up a little bit, I think not having the voicemails and those little and Preston pointed out it a little bit too, those interstitials that kind of happen on stage. They don't really show it in the movie. The movie did really lean into the show and not let the music carry it. So there are stuff that happens. Like I said, like we see Roger's girlfriend and them at the club and her OD and all that stuff. You don't get any of that in the musical. You have to see Roger's eyes and his passion in the song give you how hard that is to him. So I think the showing really does a disservice to Rent because that's when you start to be able to pick apart Rent, and it doesn't stand as well once you start to like really pick at it. And to Preston's point, when they look like 30 somethings pushing 40 somethings versus 19 and 20-year-olds, like it's harder to forgive things. The suspension of disbelief is still a thing, but the choice was made and it is what we got. But yeah, not having the voicemails really means that by the time Mark quits his job, you're like, wait, what? Mark's quitting his job? Like, who's Alexi, darling? Like, and you see like a few glimpses of him doing like, I don't even know what type of news it would be anymore because who watches the news? Like New York One, I guess.
BuzzFeed, I guess now.
Yeah, I guess BuzzFeed would be the closest thing.
What was it? Buzzline is more along the lines of TMZ right now.
Yeah, I guess TMZ because like you don't hear people be like, all right, throw it to you, Jim, anymore. Like, who wants that? But I think one thing I always have to kind of remember is Rent is a period piece. We don't like to think of an 80s based musical as a period piece because we usually think of period pieces as like the Elizabethan period or the Revolution or like those kinds of like very, very far removed. But I've heard of terrible high school productions that for some reason a Catholic school wanted to do Rent, and so they made everyone have diabetes instead of HIV.
Wait, really?
That's
yes.
common.
Oh my God.
So they had an insulin break instead of an AZT break because if you use the movie instead of the musical, the movie is much cleaner than the musical. You can kind of clean it up a little bit. And I think Joanne was a man instead of a woman. Like there was a bunch of changes made to make it less. Angel was a woman, not a. I don't think it's ever really clarified if Angel is
what pronoun?
Drag queen or trans or what. Like it's kind of left
in the movie.
In the movie, yeah.
In general, like I don't think it's
drag
really
queen.
clarified.
They do. They hint enough that it's the Angel's drag queen.
I think it's more we never see Angel out of. I think maybe in the stage it's a little more ambiguous because you never see Angel out of the Christmas dress.
They use she/her pronouns like at her funeral, which I think
and that's what I thought. That's why I was like going back and forth because I was like I can't remember what pronouns they use with Angel.
Because that was Angel's true self was the she. The only time I remember, even in the stage production, the only time that Angel is a he is when at the very beginning when dressing Colin's wounds, the Angel is not in drag. Other than that, like Angel's pretty much in drag the rest of the entire production, the movie. So
yeah, and I think those are some of those finer points that would have been worked on had they had more time. And I feel like the older I get, the more musical theater I consume. I don't love Rent less, but its flaws start to be more apparent.
Yeah.
I do think the Broadway version is the more appropriate version to tell the story. The movie it really lacks a lot of what made the Broadway version, the stage version, because it's not just Broadway. When they redid it off Broadway, I thought they did a great job in that revival. If you really want to see a terrible revival, see if you can get your hands on Rent 2.0 from London. It's all white, meaning all white, like they're all wearing white. It's millennial based, if I'm not mistaken. Mark wears like Gucci and Prada, and like it's very clear, like they make it very clear that he has money. It's
but they can't pay rent.
It did not.
It's hard to find this.
Yeah, it did not survive.
That just for curiosity's sake.
I think they may have been told by the Larson estate to stop. Like that's how bad it was. Like it didn't.
That's awesome.
It did not last very long. I remember it being like a flash pan of a controversy, like when I was in college. So, and it was another thing of like they tried to make it into the 2000s and the turn of the century, and it's like, guys, you can't take the age crisis out of the 80s and put it in 1999. Like that doesn't work.
That's like Sound of Music if Maria was a Nazi to begin with. Like it doesn't work.
Well, it's not that far. It would be more of like if you tried to take it out of World War II.
Yeah.
Because again, Mark does have money that's established in the stage play. And the other thing I think that's missing in the movie from the Broadway version is that you don't see how much like Mimi's family actually cares for her. Like in the Broadway version, you hear the voicemails from her mother who's speaking Spanish and English and like is telling Mimi to take care of herself. The same with Mark. Like you see who are the disenfranchised characters based on who don't get phone calls. And that's not established in the show. So like Mimi's downfall is almost more heartbreaking because she does have a mother who very much cares about her. And it makes her character a little more nuanced. She's not just some druggie who turned to prostitution. Like, she was a very loved girl who ended up where she ended up, and it's like almost the heartbreak of all of their stories is missing in the film.
Yeah. It's the youth of Rent is such an important part of it. These rash decisions, and also the overblown idea that they're incredible at their art. Like, they believe they're going to thrive on their art, and Maureen's incredibly pretentious and Roger's incredibly mediocre. But like, they have such the youth of it, the dream of it is so powerful for them.
Yeah. So guys,
reminds me of my YouTube channel.
So, you wanted to say something, Liz?
I was just going to say, while we all sit here on making new age art on YouTube.
Exactly.
Before we go into our overall thoughts and I close everybody out, I do want to just say tomorrow night, Front Center Mezzanine comes back with Lance Rubin. Max and PJ hitting on the Front Center Mezzanine wagon again with Lance Rubin. He's huge in Broadway, and he's friends with Max, and he seems like that's going to be a great interview. I just want to say thank you to our patrons once again. If you want to request your own episode of Suddenly Soundtracks, $25 tier gets you that. Look, these are all our tiers. All these people who have contributed money to us are rock stars. They're fantastic through and through. And make sure on Saturday to watch WandaVision. They're going to be doing a doubleheader since they missed last week's. And be sure to check out Book Nook. They just did their premiere episode last night. And it's once a month. They did the Ruins of Gorlon, so be sure to check that out on the replay. I'm going to throw it over to you, Rob. Rob, what are your overall thoughts on Rent, the soundtrack, and what would you give it overall as a rating?
Overall, I love Rent. Again, this is one of the few musicals that I will put on the soundtrack to listen to just when I'm in the mood to listen to music. Like, when I'm not listening to Pink Floyd or Linkin Park, I'll throw on like Rent. It's one of the, again, few musicals I like. Sorry, that sounded bad. I love musicals. That's one of the ones I will listen to, like I listen to regular music type of thing. Much better. Yeah, I love Rent. It is one of my top favorite musicals of all time. The music, the story, the stage performance in the movie. I mean, I understand that when I watch the movie, I'm thinking the stage performance overall. So the stuff that the movie leaves out, I get. Like, I'm still okay with. It's a fantastic soundtrack. It's great. If you're open to it, I highly recommend definitely watch the movie. At least give the movie a shot. If you're not like into musicals, stage performances, watch the movie. Let the movie be your gateway drug into the entire Broadway performance.
Yeah.
Because if you can like the movie, you can like the stage performance as well. You will. That's enough to really get you into it. So love it. Absolutely. Like, thank y'all for having me on here because I love talking Rent.
Where can the good people find you online, Rob?
You can find me over on the Cinefanatics YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Cinefanatics. We're talking movies and movie-related content over there. We just dropped today our top 10 MCU heroes, our ranking of them. Next week will be the MCU villains. So go over there, check that out, see how we rank the Marvel Cinematic Universe heroes. Was it today's... I'm lost. Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow night, Thursday, I will be over on Video Drew talking about my second love, which is horror movies. I will be participating in the Nightmare on Elm Street video chronic quiz over there. So go over there. You'll watch me decimate all competition over there because I love horror movies. Friday is the Cinefanatics live review Easter egg discussion over the current episode of WandaVision. So that'll be Friday night, probably like 9:30 to 10 Central Time. Just because we're trying to give leniency to the Movie Trivia Schmodown and their drafting on Friday night. So
that's gonna be big.
It's going to be huge. Otherwise, Tuesday nights is our flagship show, The Tagline, where we talk about movie news and movie content. That's live Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Central Time as well. So yeah, come back, follow us, Cinefanatics MLP, Twitter, Instagram, and I am at Robert Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
Awesome. Me and Chris are always welcome on here whenever you want. Preston, what are your overall thoughts on Rent?
I think I've been very verbose. If I'd never heard Rent, this soundtrack would be so great. I would love it so much. However, I'm just a soundtrack. I just can't. That is such a part of my childhood and my influences. So I would give this like a 3 out of 5. It's a lovely version of a lot of the hits of Rent. It's like a best of Rent parade if you really just want to listen to the music. So yeah, I think that's, other than that, you have 2 hours of my thoughts on Rent. You can find me everywhere at Preston Max Allen on Twitter. I'm very on Twitter and Instagram. I don't have anything coming up right now. So you can stream my musical on all streaming platforms. It is called We Are the Tigers. You can like it or hate it, but please listen to it. I recommend it to your teen.
We should do it.
We should do it as a Suddenly Soundtracks.
I was going to say we should do a special Suddenly Soundtrack where we do We Are the Tigers.
Be fucking brutal. Tear me apart. No, I would tear into it. I'd be like, I really wish we hadn't cut the interstitial here. This line, this bridge could be better.
But I love the if you don't want to be spoiled, stop now and go see your nearest production of We Are the Tigers.
Which is officially there's a little not little, it's gonna be great. It's a online licensed production run by a couple young people who reached out and did all the appropriate licensing things. They did a digital theater company. They did Heathers. They're doing Mad Ones right now. They're doing a lot of stuff that's in the kind of vein that I write. So we are gonna be having them do it this Halloween. So it's far away, but it's nice for the show to kind of get out in the world with young people, and excited to see that happen.
Especially with this day and age, we have to schedule far in advance in case stuff does indeed happen or things get canceled. Whatever happens. But yeah, we definitely need to do We Are the Tigers at some point. That would be so awesome.
I adore We Are the Tigers to the point that I think it makes Preston a little anxious sometimes, because I have tweeted him at 9 a.m. on my walk to work pre-COVID and been like, I am listening to these 2 songs and they are my start the day songs from We Are the Tigers, and I love it. And I'm so I even in my work tried to champion We Are the Tigers. I love it so much.
Thank you very much. No, it makes me uncomfortable. Sometimes I'm like, why should I get out of bed in the morning? And then you're like, I really like your show. And I'm like, I'm gonna get out of bed. Thank you. No, I'd be, if you want to do it.
Liz, what are your overall thoughts on Rent, and where can the good people find you?
So I agree with Preston. If looking back on when I discovered Rent, it probably would have been a 5, because this was the version of Rent I had, and musical theater and things like that. Living in Texas and not being able, not even really knowing back then, Broadway across America was a thing. And I didn't live that far outside of Houston. I could have gone and seen live performances. The Rent musical was a great movie, was a great gateway into fulfilling the need I had for musicals. Now where I currently am, it's a 3, because it really drops the ball in a lot of places. Choices were made for this. And I think the movie itself doesn't necessarily do justice to Rent. And so that's, the soundtrack is great. I if it comes up in my best of musicals Spotify, I don't skip the songs. They're great on their own. It's just not the Rent that I think the world deserves. And maybe one day we will get that.
Yeah.
It's not the rent the world deserves, but it's the rent the world needs.
And you can find me Saturday night on it's on the PJCN Twitch, right? We will be playing Pokemon Randomized Adventure. Some of us will be playing as Pokemon. So if you want to come for that funness, I will be in my Pikachu onesie playing until we all are too tired to play anymore. Yeah.
Dude, my brother needs a Pikachu onesie, like bad. He's just starting to Twitch, and he needs that in his life.
I know it's been a few months since we've done Pokemon, but we're going to try to make it once a month from now on to get us through that. And if you guys liked it last time, it's just a bunch of us playing Pokemon together in a randomized mod kind of sort of way. So make sure to check that out. Also, just remember tomorrow, as I said, Lance Rubin joins PJN Max for Front Center Mezzanine, so be sure to check that out. My overall thoughts on this record are going to be short, brief, and to the point. This whole soundtrack is phenomenal. From a person who's blind towards the Broadway stuff, I felt like each song was really fun. I can see how maybe if I would listen to the Broadway version, a lot of my ratings might actually be down a little bit. I will say though that I would not recommend shuffling this record. A lot of songs sort of need to be listened to in sequential order, or you get sort of half of songs and it becomes a sort of human centipede of a record, and it gets really kind of muddled. But I will say though, I can't believe it compared it to fucking human.
That was a hell of a description right there, Chris.
but you get like La Viva M.A. and then it goes into like finale B. That would be kind of awkward. That kick ass, actually, but it'd be kind of awkward. But as I said though, this is a solid download. It if I was listening to the Broadway version, and I think I'm gonna do like a redux version of Suddenly Soundtracks where we go through the Broadway version of some of these things like down the road. That would be phenomenal. We could do that with Cabaret at some point. There's so much limited possibilities with this show because we talk about all sorts of music. So from myself, Robert, Ellie, and Preston, you can find me at Chris Clark 8788. Those numbers mean nothing. So bada bing, bada boom, keep rocking as I try to find the fucking branding. There we go. And bye, guys. This is a great fucking way to end this. Also, make sure rent is very important. Bye.